We're rolling, but I need a count in. Hello, welcome to the Podcast Engineering Show. My name is Chris Curran. I'm very happy that you're here. On this show, we talk about podcast audio production in great depth. Yeah, I give you podcast production techniques on a silver platter. Sometimes I do interviews, but today's episode is one of my daily Goody episodes where I'm just going to go over 10 of my short blog posts and talk about them. And you can sign up to receive the daily goodies via email on the website, podcastengineeringschool.com. The next semester of Podcast Engineering School starts on January 10th, 2023, and the one after that starts in April, I believe. I'm going to talk about, as I mentioned, 10 different short blog posts, and links to each and every blog post is in the show notes. So if I talk about something, if I talk about one of the posts and you want to go see it, the links are below. All right, so let's get right into it. Of course, Barry's here with me.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, baby, he's here. Barry, what do you think about episodes where you're not on the episode?
There's no activity, no giggle, no nothing.
There's no nothing, wow. All right, and what do you think about people listening to the show who do not share this show with their podcasting friends? What do you think about that?
That's frightening.
I know. It's not right. It's just not right. Anyway, let's get into it. Expecting a plugin preset to do what the name says. Yeah, expecting a plugin preset to do what the name says. So you've probably seen this before where you'll open up a compressor plugin in your DAW and it'll have presets and it'll say, female voice, male voice, whatever. And it's a preset. It's just preset settings that you can just apply. And in my experience, these are good as starters. So it's good. You can use a preset to get started. And you can even go through a bunch of presets. Just try preset 1, listen for a minute, go to preset 2, listen for a minute, or 10 seconds really. And then go to preset 3, and whichever one sounds the best, you choose that preset. But then you should probably tweak it manually a little bit. So, because the odds that all the settings are going to be exactly perfect for the voice that you're working on, it's very rare. So usually, at least 90% of the time, you're going to have to tweak the compressor a little bit or the EQ, whatever it is. So you can use presets, but you have to still tweak them manually using your ear. So, and some presets, the name will say something like, deep, dark cavern sound, and you'll put it on and it won't sound anything like that. So you can't believe the names of presets. You have to listen to it. And then, like I said, when you pick a good preset to start with, then tweak it slightly with using your ears, and then you're good. Then you're golden. All right, next post. Oh, well, this is a previous episode of the show, episode 230. Have you heard this one? My experience opening and operating a brick and mortar podcast studio for 3 years. So this is a really cool episode because I go through so much, the economics, the history, what were the advantages, what was the equipment setup, of summation, what did I learn? There's so much in here. So if you want to hear me talk about that, it's episode 230. Next post. When editing out silence to increase pacing, be sure to ... So when you're editing out silence to increase pacing, there's a danger of editing out too much silence, and therefore the episode seems too abrupt. As soon as someone starts talking, the next sentence starts, and they never breathe, and this just goes on, and then this, and then when I go to I took a breath there. I should have edited that out. No, but you understand. There's a natural pacing to the way people talk, right? You can hear when someone is edited too tight, meaning there's too much blank space taken out between sentences and stuff. You can hear that. It sounds weird. It sort of gives you anxiety. It's like, oh my, like what is happening? Is someone like pressing the fast forward button? So when you're editing, you can take out some of that silence to increase the pacing of the episode. Of course you can, but be careful. Don't overdo it, because if you overdo it, then it's going to sound very weird. So it's just a naturalness issue. Like That's literally all it comes down to. After you make an edit, you put your cursor about 5 seconds before the edit and you press play and you listen to your edit, and it should sound natural. It shouldn't sound rushed and unnatural. So be careful. Next one, loudness range of final episodes. What's good and what's bad? Yeah, the loudness range. So loudness range is interesting because most of you know that the final loudness level of podcast episodes should be, if it's stereo, it should be minus 16 LUFS. And if it's mono, it should be minus 19 LUFS. That's just the average loudness over the whole episode. But there's another evaluation that can be done, which is loudness range. And the loudness range is similar, but it's a range. It's like the difference between the loudest parts and the average of the lower parts. And by the way, Isotope RX can evaluate audio and tell you the loudness range. And I don't know of any other apps that do it. Auphonic, I just remembered, Auphonic does this. If you use Auphonic through the web interface, you can actually choose your final loudness range. In my experience, 4 to 5 LU is a pretty good range. So LU is loudness units, and 4 to 5 is just a range. Between 4 and 5 LU loudness range is pretty good for podcasts and, like radio-like audio. Although I've definitely produced episodes where I used a bunch of compression and it sounded good to me, and it was like maybe 7 or 8 loudness units range, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I've even heard some at 3.5 LU that sound fine. So that's the range. And so the danger here is if your loudness range is like 20 LU, what that means is that the loud parts are really loud, and then the lower volume parts are really low, and that's going to be difficult for the listener to take in that episode because they're going to have to ride the volume knob, right? Which is exactly what you don't want, right? You want the listener to just listen and enjoy the episode. So if your loudness range is small enough, like between 4 and 5 LU, that's great, because even if they're in a car, even if they're jogging or washing dishes, whatever background noise is there while they're listening, they'll still be able to hear your podcast episode perfectly well. But if the loudness range is 20 and you have any noise, like if you're driving in a car or something and there's the road noise, you might hear the loud parts, but as soon as the volume goes way down, you're going to lose it. You're not going to be able to hear it over the road noise. So Isotope RX can do this. You can set it to a certain, you can't really set it to a certain loudness range, but it'll evaluate the audio and tell you what the loudness range is. Auphonic is different. Auphonic, I believe you can set what loudness range you want, and then it'll just do it. So that's pretty cool. All right, let's move on. The white glove service. Engineering client recording sessions remotely. Yeah, I used to call it the white glove service because this is what I used to do more. I still do it sometimes, but I used to do it more, where I would engineer client recording sessions remotely. So I would have clients, and I wouldn't just do the post-production. I would actually be there live in the recording session. I would run the recording session. I would sound check everybody, and I would record everything myself. And the reason I call this the white glove service is because all the client has to do is literally like click a link and go into Squadcast or Riverside or Zencaster, right? They don't have to worry about recording the episode. They don't have to worry about sound checking their guest, making sure their guest sounds decent and their guest is going to be recorded properly. As the engineer, I do all that. So I'll tell you what, clients love this. Now, you have to charge quite a bit more for this, obviously, because it takes more of your time. And again, it's a white glove service. But here's the thing. Medium to large companies who have marketing budgets, this is exactly what they want. They don't want to record their own audio. They don't want to sound check a guest and make sure they're using the right microphone and telling them not to make noise and to sit close to the mic and all that stuff, right? They don't want to do that. They have money. They want to hire a person to do everything. So that's what I did for many companies for many years. It was really good. Yeah, and again, the links are in the description if you want to read more about any of these posts. Let's go to the next one. Using cable labels to reduce spaghetti confusion in your studio. Yeah, well, first of all, spaghetti, you know, when you have like 7 mic cables and 4 guitar cables on the floor and they're all mixed up and intertwined and it's just a bunch of spaghetti. Yeah, that's spaghetti. That's what we call in the studio. It's spaghetti. So you don't want that, right? So to reduce the spaghetti in your studio, you can use cable labels. And it's cool. I have a picture on the post. It's just these little, it's like a little label. You can write on it. You can write, you know, the RE320, and then you wrap it around the cable and it sort of sticks. It's a little sticky. It sticks there. And then, so now you know that cable is for your RE320 microphone, and you can label. And of course, you only need to do this if you're using a bunch of cables, right? If you're literally using only one cable, then you don't need a label, right? Because it's just one cable. You know what it is. But when you start having like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 cables, labeling them really helps. And they're cheap too. So you get 60 of the labels for like $12. And I have a link to that in the post. So pretty cool. And a picture too. Barry likes cable labels, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, baby. In fact, Barry, if you had a bunch of cables in a studio, you wouldn't even begin work until you labeled them all, right?
Oh, forget it.
I know. I know you, Barry. I really know you. And Barry, what did you say that? Remember that time you walked into my studio and you told me, and you saw 14 cables on the ground, all tangled up in spaghetti. What are the exact words you said to me?
It's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess. All right. Next, Daily Goody. The best sounding microphone emulation for my voice using my Sphere L22 microphone. So I bought the Sphere L22 microphone for music reasons, by the way. It's a $1,500 mic, and it's a large diaphragm condenser. But the great thing about it is it comes with software that emulates like many 30 or 40 classic vintage microphones, like the best microphones in the world, the U47s, the U67s, the 251s, all that stuff. So I bought it because for music, and I did use it on an episode or two. I forgot which one it was. So anyway, what you can do with this mic, it's so cool. You can record the audio straight, meaning without any emulation or nothing. You just record the mic. It's actually 2 diaphragms in this mic. So it's a front diaphragm and a rear diaphragm. And so you need to record it on 2 tracks, right? One is the front, one is the back. And then you can apply the plugin. This is in post-production. After it's recorded, you apply the plugin, and then you can start switching through all the vintage mics. Like, oh, I want to try a U47. And then you try it, and it'll change the sound. Then you're like, oh, I want to try, a classic 414. Boom, try it. So I did that for my voice, just obviously because I bought it and I'm so curious. I'm like, which is the best emulation setting for my voice? And well, I'll just tell you, it was the LD 414 nylon microphone. So it's a 414, but apparently it's one of the original 414s. It's made by Audio-Technica. No, AKG. I'm sorry. AKG 414s. Sorry. But yeah, the nylon version sounded really good on my voice. So, and I forget what episode that was. You know what it was? I used the Sphere L22 microphone, but I didn't use, I used the U47 emulation, and that was episode 225. So if you want to hear that, go back to episode 225, and you'll hear me on the Sphere L22 microphone with the U47 emulation from the Ocean Way mic collection. So, all right, next Daily Goody. Gain Rider plugin. Yeah, Dynaride 2. Dynaride 2. Yeah, this is a Gain Rider plugin similar to Vocal Rider from Waves, but this is from a different company. And so it apparently does, it's very similar to Vocal Rider, but it seems to have more knobs and faders and stuff. I have not tried this one yet, but I have heard good things about it. And these sort of Vocal Rider plugins are really so helpful when it comes to podcast production, just because of the amateur way in which most people record their podcasts. And that, I'm not putting them down or anything, I'm just calling it what it is. And so when you have that, when you record at an amateur level, if you want to mix it to be a professional level, you need to use tools like this, like compression, and you need to manage the dynamic range and get the EQ right, stuff like that. So Dynaride 2, I haven't tried it yet. If you have tried it, let me know. I'm very curious. I have too many plugins, by the way. That's if you ever wonder, like if you ever wonder why I might talk about a plugin that I have not tried, and you might think in your head, oh, well, dude, you're the host of the show. You should, if you're going to talk about it, you should try it. Let me tell you something. I talk about a million plugins, and I own probably a million plugins, and I just don't have time. I can't do it. So, hey, that's why it's an opportunity for you guys. If you want to send in your experience with any of these plugins, send it. Send it. All right, let's move on to the next one. Should you ask remote guests to record their own audio locally? Should you ask remote guests to record their own audio locally? Well, there's two main different scenarios here. And the first scenario is if the guest has their own podcast, right? They're already the host of their own podcast. In that case, yes, you can ask them to record locally because I'm sure they have a decent microphone and a decent setup, and they're used to recording themselves because they host their own podcast. So asking someone like that to record themselves locally is totally cool. And by the way, the reason you might want participants to record themselves locally is because it's better quality than recording audio over the internet. And it's even better quality than, for instance, Squadcast and Riverside and those platforms. They do record everyone locally, but they don't record it. They're not just recording the raw signal. There's some processing going on that changes the sound a little. It's not completely raw. It's not just a straight raw capture. Squadcast and Riverside, they do something. It's very slight, but they do something. And by the way, and those platforms are just great, and you can't go wrong just using that. But people like me, if my guest has their own podcast, I will ask them to record themselves locally. Why not? It's easy for them. You know what I mean? It takes 30 seconds to set it up, and then they just hit record, and then they share the file with me later. So that's my preference. Okay, so that's the first type of a guest, someone who already has their own show and who knows how to record themselves locally. What's the second type of guest? Well, you guessed it. It's the exact opposite. It's the person who's never been on a podcast, who doesn't own a microphone, who doesn't know anything about audio, who doesn't know how to work their own computer. They literally know nothing, and they show up to be a guest, which is fine. But yeah, that person, you don't ask them to record their own audio locally. That's perfect case where you need to use, Squadcast or Riverside or Zencaster, right? So that's it. I could go on, but let's just keep going. Next post. Best recording tip for someone who speaks at a soft, low volume. Yeah, did you ever have a guest like this? Yeah, they just, some people, they speak, they don't really project, and they just want to keep it, they just talk softly. So they talk softly, and that's fine. But guess what? When you speak softly like that, it's very different from someone like me right now who's projecting. Like I'm speaking pretty much and this is just me personally, but right now I'm like if someone was here in the room with me, I wouldn't speak this loud, right? Right now, I feel like I'm amped up and I'm speaking a little bit loud. I mean, if I was amped up, I might speak this loud, but anyway, the point is I'm projecting right now. I'm projecting quite a bit. And someone who speaks softly, they don't project. They don't project. And so the sound, just the raw sound and the frequencies of someone who projects versus someone who does not project is vastly different. For one thing, the person who talks at a very low volume, you got to watch out for sibilance, because their sibilance will still be loud, but because their voice is so much lower in volume, their sibilance is going to stick out way more. So you got to be careful of sibilance, which isn't hard to handle. If you have a good de-esser, you can handle sibilance, not a problem. And the other thing, and then the other minor note is plosives, right? So because if someone talks at a very low volume, you want them to get very close to their microphone. Like, that's key, by the way. I should have mentioned that first. If someone's really talking at a very low volume, you literally have to put the mic like 2 inches from their mouth and tell them not to move. You have to. You just have to. That's it. So get their mouth close to the mic, and then, in post-production, you might have to deal with plosives, and you'll probably have to deal with sibilance. So anyway, that's just good to know. All right, and this is the last one of this episode, and it's a video, which I can't show here. Anyway, MaxxVolume. The MaxxVolume plugin from Waves. Yeah, it's so handy. So I made a video about it. It's on the Podcast Engineering School YouTube channel. So if you go to the YouTube channel, you'll see it says MaxxVolume plugin. And this is a great plugin because remember earlier when I talked about the Dynaride 2 and the Vocal Rider and how they're similar and they're very handy for podcast production? Well, this MaxxVolume is even more handy because it kind of does two things. It kind of, one part of it acts like a regular compressor, just a compressor where you just set the threshold and it'll, if the audio gets loud, it'll compress it down a little. But the other side of it, they call it low-level compression, basically. You're still compressing the dynamic range, but what you're doing is you're taking all the low-volume stuff and pushing it up. So you're taking the loud stuff and pushing it down a bit, and you're taking the low-volume stuff and you're pushing it up a bit. And it's nice because they both work toward making a smaller dynamic range. And it's just great, though. It's just, I don't know, something about this plugin is really nice. It's really very handy. So, all right, well, that is it. Look, I appreciate you. Barry, do you appreciate all the listeners?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I know you do. And do you think I should ask the listeners to send me money?
No way. You crazy?
I know. I've never asked for money in my life on this show. Anyway, I hope you appreciate all this stuff I'm bringing you. Thank you for listening. Thanks for participating. If you have any questions, email me. You can do it through the website, podcastengineeringschool.com. And if you have any recommendations for guests, send it to me. If you just want to reach out and say hi, please do. It's all good. I really appreciate it. And also, because the New Year's almost here, I'm going to offer a little special discount on my smaller course, the one that's called Getting New Clients at Higher Rates. If you're interested in that course, let me know. I'll give you a special discount. Just email me or message me somehow, and we'll get you a special discount. All right, well, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, baby. All right, thanks, everybody, for listening. And let's go out with the song that I used to play on the outro of every episode. You remember this? For like 200 episodes, I literally ended every episode with this song. Let's do it again. Why not? All right, thank you guys. We'll see you.
lose control where it's quite a feeling, isn't it? They're floating, drifting down, now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. You react some angry. You change your attitude. You say I just don't get it now. You say your eyes so far away now. You gave up on me where some chance you gave me gave away. You say I wouldn't understand now. You tell me that you found something better.